Okay, so how does this look in a journal? So we use the salary journal, with the wages journal, depending which one we do. And I typically split this process into three sections to make it easy for you to view the concepts. First section I typically deal with is the employee. He comes in first at the journal. You'll see the first couple of columns is dedicated for him. He earns a gross salary. You have to book in all his deductions, and then that equals to his net salary. Then the second part of the journal, the last part of the journal actually, is over to the employer. So you have to figure out, what does the employer contribute in this case? So is he contributing STL? Always. Is he contributing UIF? Always. Is he contributing medical aid or pension fund? That your question will tell you. Okay, so that's the second part of your journal. That's the SJ. And then the third part of this process is moved over to the cash for payments journal, where you do what we call the payroll run, or doing the actual payments. And this is where we actually go and credit bank and debit everything we have to pay. So first off, our net salaries, which is obviously important for our employees, and everyone that we now owe contributions to. Remember, we owe for UIF, we owe for PAYE to SARS, we owe for the STL, we owe for pension fund, medical aid. So when we run our payroll, we put everything through our bank account and pay our employees, and also pay everyone that we need to pay. Okay, and this is your salary journal as well as your cash book payments. So number 3 is in the cash book payments, number 1 and 2 is in the salary or then wages journal pending. Okay, next up, I'm going to deal with your T account. So how do you put the salaries journal and the cash book payments journal into the T accounts? Okay, I'm sticking with the 3 sections. So we had section number 1, which is the employee. Okay, even say that it's the first section of the SJ up until the net salary. We debit gross salaries as an expense, as we've always done. We credit to all our deduction creditors. Okay, think about what that means. Deduction creditors means people that we owe our deductions to. So we credit EMP 201 for all the tax-related deductions, and we credit the medical aid and the pension fund. We also then credit creditors for salaries for the net salary. Remember, debit equals credit. You can see there one big debit, a couple of credits, because the net salary, remember, ultimately is what I need to pay my employees. Okay, you can see as a reminder, different to the previous slide, just swapped around. Deductions and net salary equals gross salary. Your 2 credits there and there equals your 1 debit. Okay, debit gross salaries before deductions, credit everyone that I owe the deductions to, as well as the remaining net salary to my employee. That are all creditors, that all meet the definition of creditors, which is people I owe money to. So that's why you can credit them. Okay, then second section, where we work with our employer. So the employer is, who he makes contributions for certain things. And I even mentioned briefly earlier that any contribution he makes is an expense. So we debit all of those different contributions, whether it's UIF, SDL, or medical aid and pension fund, you will go and debit them because they are business expenses. You credit who these expenses need to be paid to. Again, they're also creditors. So you credit EMP 201 for all your tax-related things, SARS, UIF, SDL, anything that goes to SARS, and you credit the medical aid and pension fund company for whatever you need to pay to them. So debit and credit, debit and credit, debit a contribution, credit to the contribution needs to go to. And then lastly, you do your payroll, your CBP entries. Your credit bank, which is the first thing that you should be able to say with me right now, because you've done the CBP, it's always going to be a credit bank. You debit everything. You debit all your creditors. Okay, remember, all your debits will equal your credit. Your credit bank's going to be one big entry. You're going to debit every person you owe money to. In this case, you owe money to SARS. You owe money to your employees. you owe money to your medical aid and your pension fund companies. So you're going to debit all your payroll creditors. Okay, and that is your process. Just as a reminder, lastly, something that is excluded from the scope of your module, I did touch on it on the earlier slides, the calculation of UIF remuneration, the calculation of SDL, PAYE remuneration, as well as the calculation of PAYE deduction. This just means that all of those figures, if needed, is going to be given to you. You just need to work out, in this case, you just need to work out the 1%. Okay, and that you just need to go and put into your journal.